Hey guys, this is Mrs. Still, and I'm here to show you about the double exposure tool and selective tool in Snapseed. Wanted to show you a few pictures that I have done using double exposures before. I really like the way these came out. This was two different pictures of my face. Again, my face and then a shadow of myself on the wall. This was a shadow of my dog with some reflections on the ground, and I took the same exact photo, flipped it a different direction, and laid it over the top of itself. This one was a bird wing, and I just flipped the image around and then laid it over the top of itself. This was a landscape along with some objects that I took a still life of, one being a seashell and one being a picture frame, which is the roses there on the bottom. Blended that together with the mountains and the water there, and I love the way this one came out. A self-portrait and a moth. This was my cat, along with the same picture of my cat. And so you can see I just shrunk the one down and laid it over the top of the other one and did some blending. And then one of myself with a flower over the top of my eye. I really like the way this one came out. Now, I'm going to show you a couple different pictures here that I'm going to blend. Now, this was a picture I tried to make before. I spent lots of time on it. I did a lot of layers, a lot of blending, a lot of tricks and different tools. And by the time I was done, it was such a large file that I couldn't save it. So I tried to save it, but it was too big and I couldn't get it out of there. So this was a screenshot, and that was the only way I was able to save it. But what I'm going to do is take this picture, which was the original, and then I'm going to blend it with this picture, and I'm going to show you kind of how I did this and try to recreate it so that I can save it. This was the other photo that we put over the top of that. So, and this was kind of midway, just so you get an idea. So we're going to start with this one. Now I've already upped the saturation and put a filter on it. I'm going to go ahead and save it or send it to Snapseed and then go to my tools and I'm going to click on double exposure. When I do, I have this little plus sign down here. I'm going to add a picture and I'm going to go here to my photos and go where I want to get the picture from. And it's right here. And when I do this, I'm going to flip this picture around and resize it so that the sun is right in my eye because I want that to line up right there. Now, I can click these pre-made blends and see if any of these look cool, but I don't really like any of those. So I'm going to go back to default. And then when I click on this drop, I can either go all the way down to the bottom picture, right? That's the picture I started with. And the top one doesn't show up hardly at all. Or I can turn this all the way up so that all I can see is the top photo. And that other picture is still under there, but I just can't see it because I covered it up. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go ahead and click my check mark. Now, I want to blend some of my face into this. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to my view edits. Okay. I'm going to click on that top layer, which is my double exposure, and I'm going to paint. Use that paintbrush. Okay. It stacks the brush. So what I'm going to do is right now it's at 0. So if I try to paint anything, nothing's going to show. If I turn it up to 25% and I paint over this, it's going to look really light. If I go up to 50%, it's going to get darker, and so on and so forth. Now this is also covering up my bottom picture, and I don't want to cover it up. I want some of it to show through. So I'm going to go back to 0, and I'm going to paint back over that. And then I'm going to start with about 50%. And I want to go around my eyes because I want those to show. So I'm not going to paint over them. I'm going to go around them carefully. And I'm going to go around my face. I want my face to show. So I'm going to cover all this. Okay. Now, I kind of want, there we go. I kind of want some of the trees to be a little darker. So I'm going to go back over this, make those show through more. And go around here. And actually, I'm just going to turn all this up to 100 and go all the way around my face. Okay, make all that stand out, but be careful not to go over my trees because I don't want to erase them. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now, one last thing that I want to do is I want my eye and the sun to be part of one another. And right now I'm covering up the sun because I have my exposure turned up to 100. So I'm going to go over my eye. And then I'm going to go back down to 0. And I'm just going to click right in the middle to show the pupil. And then I'm going to back out and see what that looks like. And I like the way that looks. I'm going to go ahead and use my check mark, say OK. Now the other tool I was going to show you is the selective tool. So I'm going to go to selective here. And what this tool will do is I'll click wherever I want to select. And I'm going to select right in the middle of my eye. Now if I slide up or down, I can adjust brightness. I can adjust contrast. And of course I just let go when I want to do one. Saturation or structure. I just want to adjust the brightness right now. And it's gonna select this whole area, but I can adjust it by pinching and moving my, pointer finger and my thumb in and out to select where I want that brightness to go. So I want it to go right here, and then I'm going to slide my finger over to the right to adjust that up. I'm also going to adjust the contrast a little, and maybe the saturation a little as well, and say okay. All right, I like the way that looks. Now the last thing that I'm going to do to this is I'm going to add one more layer. So double exposure, I keep calling them layers because I'm used to Photoshop, so forgive me. I'm going to add a photo on top here, and I'm going to use this picture that my daughter took of a cardboard tube with a light shining through it that looks really, really cool. And it's down here somewhere. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and click here. And I'm going to turn this a little bit on its side. And again, I can choose some pre-blended, blends here, or I can go back to default. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this up here all the way again, just so I have more control. Again, I like to do it this way because I feel like I'm able to adjust things a little bit easier. But I just moved it because I wanted to make sure that was in the right spot. There we go. Okay. Right about here. The reason I did that is because I had a little corner up there in the right that was showing, and I did not like the way that looked. All right, turn it up. Save. And go to View Edits. And I'm going to go to my brush. And I'm going to turn this up just a little, maybe to 50% up here on the top. And paint this in here. Okay, that looks pretty cool. And I'm going to turn it down to 25 when I go here on the face because I don't want it to show through the whole thing there. All right, that looks pretty cool. Now, I would do some more to it if I was going to save it, but I like the way that looks, and I'm going to go ahead and be done with that one for now, okay? Let's go ahead and go back so I can show you one more trick. All right. This last photo is a picture of my sister and my nephew. And what I want to do is use double exposure to fix this hair that's over the top of her forehead. Normally in Photoshop, I would be able to take the selection tool and I could select the color that's on her forehead and just paint with that same exact color over the hair, and it would cover it up. But we don't have that same tool to work with in Snapseed, so I'm going to do this a different way. Okay, I'm going to share this picture to Snapseed, and I'm going to get my tools and do a double exposure. And what I want to do is add this same exact picture over the top of itself. Okay, so we're going to go find that picture. And it's a little ways back. Here we go. All right. Now, it is over the top of itself, so you can't really tell. But if I move it, you can tell that this top photo is a little more see-through and the bottom one is not. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to make this top picture a little bit bigger because I just want that part of her forehead to cover up the hair that's on that bottom layer. Now, if I go ahead and show you, right, if I turn this all the way up, that's the top photo. And notice right on the top photo, this one, her forehead color is now covering up that hair that's on that bottom layer on the smaller picture, okay? So I'm going to turn this all the way up and click my check mark. Now, remember that other picture's under there, and I'm going to go to my view edits. I'm going to go to my paintbrush, and I'm going to paint just on her forehead, because if I paint everywhere, remember that other picture is here, and it's just going to cover up that one, but I don't want to do that. I just want to cover up that forehead. So I'm going to go back and start over again, and I'm just going to go up. I'll start at 50%, zoom in here, and I'm just going to go over that one spot. I'm going to go up to 75, do a little more, and I'm easing in here so I don't make it look weird. And then I'll go up to 100. That way, it just looks like the hair kind of barely blends in there really naturally. And it looks like there's a little bit of a different shadow there, but we can make it look really natural. Let's zoom out, see how that looks. And it looks pretty darn good. Now, the only thing I did was I forgot some of the other picture over here, so I'm going to go ahead and erase that, make sure I don't have any weird stuff happening. But now we've fixed that. It looks so good. I'm going to hit my check mark, and now she doesn't have that hair over the top of her forehead. I can go to the original. Okay, there it is. And here I fixed it. Now, I'd probably do that a little more carefully if I was going to save this, but I just want you guys to get an idea of how you can use these tools to your advantage, and I hope this helps. Until next time, happy editing.